Hi typography students, it's Bonnie. I'm going to walk you through the process of thumbnails in this video. So hopefully this will help you within your own process. Before I start, I just want to say a few words about why do we thumbnail in this digital age. It's still an important part of the process within a studio situation, whether it's an agency or a design studio, because clients want to know what you're thinking, what are your ideas before they spend a lot of money having you actually build your idea in whatever program you're using. So it's a quick way to get your ideas across to your art director, your creative director, and also to your client, and it's still used in studios today. So again, this is my process, and if it helps you, great. What you should have is your spec sheet that you received in class, and it's a 4-page spec sheet. First page was about your paper, which should already be done, so we're on the second page now. And you should also have the paper that you wrote along with the references, your 4-page paper plus references. And you should have your large-scale printouts of your typeface family, uppercase, lowercase. If you have any numbers and symbols, that would be great also to include. You should have your tracing paper pad with you. Mine is a 9x12. And then you should have the thumbnail printout of your master page grid. And mine is, I printed it out 2x2 thumbnail printout of InDesign master page. And I will post instructions for this also on Moodle. But it's basically just your master page grid in small thumbnail form. So I also want to just show you a couple examples of the final books. I don't believe we're going to physically build these books like we have in the past because of the situation we're in, but you will be posting PDF files of your book for sure. So this is an example of Perpetua, one of the typefaces. You can see how the designer, this is from a student designer. There's subheads, body copy. The type is used as image within the book. This one happens to be a few more pages than necessary. Here's a large call-out quote, and the full alphabet is included, uppercase, lowercase. There's some symbols being used as visual elements. This one is about Rockwell. Again, we're really focusing on the beauty of the type forms, using screens. I call them screens, but it's also transparency of your color and also of black. So remember that you can use transparencies within that, and they can overlap. Here's again subhead, body copy. The student used full color, reversed the body copy out of their flat color. Just a couple examples. And here's another one with Dado. Again, using those same specs, 2 color, black plus 1 spot color. And the next part I'll get into the details of this. Okay, so I'm going to start my thumbnailing. Again, I've got my my small thumbnail grid on my drawing board. You can use whatever surface you have. I just happen to have a drawing board in my studio, and I'm just taping it down. And I'm getting a piece of tracing paper, and I'm just going to trace down the overall thumbnail. Just the trim size, and then I'm eyeing where that the fold of the book is, or where the middle of that is, and I'm going to put as many of these spreads on this single sheet of tracing paper as I can. And I'm just going to start numbering these underneath it, what I call the pagination of the book. So again, if you've got a book and you open it up to its flat size, the back cover will be on the left, the front cover will be on the right. So your thumbnails should reflect that. So back cover is BC, front cover is FC, and then again, always thinking about the book as spreads. The next page or the next spread would be inside front cover. I put IFC, then page 1. My next spread is 2, 3, then 4, 5. I've got to get another sheet. Six, 7, page 8, and then inside back cover IBC. So if I look at what I have right now, I have my full book, 8 pages plus covers, all right in front of me in thumbnail size. Again, I'll just repeat that pagination: back cover, front cover, inside front cover, page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, inside back cover. And, you know, I just think now it's not so intimidating to me because this is the full book. But now I have to think about it, my ideas, and have them come out in thumbnail form. When you're thinking about your ideas, again, think about those principles of composition that we talk about in class: repetition, continuity, flow, contrast. Those are things that will really especially work well with a book. I never do my back cover and front cover first in terms of design. I always start in the inside of the book because my covers should always reflect the design of the inside of the book. And I don't know it yet, so I'm just kind of figuring it out. So I know that you may look at your copy and say, how do I know how much copy will fit in this book? Just know that because I've done this project so many times, think about 1 page of copy would take up 1 page of the book, and then the other pages would be imagery. They don't have to be exactly in that order. You can mix up the order, but that's about where we're at. Also keep in mind that your body copy, and I'll talk about this later also, your body copy should really be anywhere between, I'd say, 8 point, no larger than 12 point. Your subheads should be larger than the body copy, and your headline should be larger than your subheads. So again, look at the specifications on your spec sheet. You know you have to have, you're using your paper for the body copy. You know you have to design a grid. You've already done that. It's right here. You have to show the entire alphabet of the specific font you chose, both in upper and lowercase form. And you have to use the typeface you chose as the main element of the book. So I've got the specs right here in front of me. I know that I have to design a grid. It's already here. I have to show the entire alphabet of the specific font you choose, both in upper and lowercase. I have to use the typeface that you chose as, or you have to use the typeface you chose as the main image of the book. Think of the characters as images that could be shown small or large. Again, you're in a type class, you're not in an illustration class or a photography class, so your imagery should really focus on the typography. Colors should be black plus one flat or spot Pantone color. You can use screens of black and screens of your color. The book should include the following: a headline, usually that's on the cover, which would be like the typeface, the name of the designer. It has to include subheads, body copy, a pull-out quote used as a graphic element. You should cite your references, your name, the name of the class, instructor's name. And you can use imagery up to 3 black and white images or duotones, but that shouldn't be the main focus of the book. Use them small if you do use imagery. So, here's my process. I've got all this stuff in front of me, and I am not putting too much pressure on myself in terms of making this beautiful the first time out. The nice thing about tracing paper is that it's inexpensive. You can, toss it aside if you don't like your idea. You can put one tracing paper on top of another and redraw it if you need to. But again, I'm just going to sort of think about these specs and start designing. Again, not putting too much pressure on myself to be perfect, or especially first time out. But so the inside front cover, I think I want that more graphic than, I don't want to just jump into body copy on that. So I'm looking at some of these typefaces in terms of the glyphs or the characters, and there's an interesting cue that I think I'll start off with. Again, these are thumbnails, they don't need to be perfect, but as you place things, think about the grid and, put type on some sort of baseline on the grid. I think that that's an interesting visual element. I also remember that I've got to do this entire alphabet, uppercase and lowercase, and I think I'll use that as a graphic element on the bottom and start just kind of showing that graphically. And again, you can kind of see I'm doing squiggles. You don't have to draw out each individual letter. Some of the larger letters you may want to. And then I'll again kind of remind myself of where I am with my body copy, and you may want to take some of your grid lines from off of your grid and use that as an anchor point if you'd like. Like here I'm just using, a couple of flow lines that I'm filling in to make it like a heavier stroke that will be sort of my anchor for my subheads. And then I'll squiggle in a subhead, and I can see my columns right through here, so I can kind of see where I would place my body copy. I'm just doing it really roughly. I'm indicating flush left, rag right. So, right now that seems okay to me. I might even start putting other forms behind just lightly, just to get a little more graphic in. But that's inside front cover, page 1. So thinking about the continuity of the book, and then I kind of made a decision about using the alphabet at the bottom of the page, upper lowercase as a graphic element. Again, I've got these grid lines that I'm actually going to show as anchor points for my subheads, and thinking about where my columns are, I'm roughing in some body copy. And even though it's rough, I'm getting a sense of hierarchy. My subheads are larger than my body copy. My graphics are a little larger than everything else too. And put in some copy here. Again, I'm not being too harsh on myself yet about design, but I think I will add some graphics in the back. I had a pencil at one point. Here it is. I've got just a pilot point marker and a pencil, and I'm using the pencil because I can kind of lightly put in graphics behind that, and obviously it's lighter than a marker pen. So I've got inside front cover, page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I've got to remember about that quote as a graphic element. So I'm just going to add that on page 4. I'm going to keep the continuity of this alphabet at the bottom going on. And then I'm going to make that quote really large. Again, I'm using that quote, and you can see that my squiggling is becoming much larger. I'm thinking about the hierarchy, even in this very small thumbnail. And then the next page doesn't have to be so graphic, so I can just continue with my body copy. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Really only got a few more pages to go. Again, thinking about that alphabet that will happen at the bottom of each page. I'm going to do page 8, right? Inside back cover while I'm at it. And things may not exactly work out like this, but at least I've got, you know, some sort of plan that I'm thinking about. And then don't forget about, I've got to get my name of class, instructor's name, and I've got to cite my references. I'm going to do that on my inside back cover, so I'm not going to be worried about that yet. But this 6, 7 is looking kind of boring to me, so I think I'm going to add some graphics to that. Again, I've got some interesting numbers that I can kind of play around with, and that can just be a total graphic page, just to break up the monotony of it. Can even use some symbols. And then page 8, inside back cover, I'm coming to the end. So that inside back cover, I know that's where I'm going to put my references. I'm going to put design by whoever I am. I'm going to put my instructor's name really small, 6-point type. And then that's about it. Maybe I've got a photograph that I think is interesting, and I'll put that on page 8. Maybe it has something to do with my type designer. And again, I might want to end with some graphics on the page versus... And those graphics can, you know, again, I can use transparencies and screens, so some of the type can overprint some other things. So as I'm looking at this thumbnail now, or these thumbnails, I've got the book designed, except for the covers. But I have a sensibility within these thumbnails. There is a sense of continuity. There's a flow to it. You know, there's my subheads are starting pretty much on this at the same place on the grid all the time. You know, I'm using those flow lines to help give a sense of continuity and structure throughout. And so now I'll go back and, kind of keeping in mind what I've done here, I'll design the cover. It's Futura. Again, thinking about where to put that on the grid. I think I'll keep that really large. and the name of the designer. That would be considered my headline. And again, you can always go back and add some graphics. Think of your type as your graphic, but use your flow lines. Remember, this grid is a horizontal and vertical grid, does not have diagonals in it. If you're using W's and A's, you're going to have diagonals that you can use as a graphic element, but don't put your type on a diagonal. So anyway, I may love this or not. So it's a nice way. This process is a nice way of getting your ideas out, but keeping in mind there's a structure behind it. So when you start building it, your book is going to really look a lot like your thumbnails because your structure is there to help you. Okay, thanks. Good luck with everything.